Marilyn, great to see you. Thanks for joining me this morning. Now, over the last few weeks, we've seen in the newsletter you've been raising the profile of a new ministry at MIE that's opened during lockdown, the kind of the pop-up shop. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that and how it works?
Yeah, it's a model that's been set up by other people. It wasn't our idea, but it's a model that we get food from Fair Share, which is an organisation that rescues food from supermarkets.
Yeah,
takes lots of stock from places like Tesco and Asda and Aldi, and they commit to providing food that then gets distributed to people who need it across the town. And we were able to access that. We get food every week from them in quantities from 100 kilograms up. We pay for it, but it's a very nominal amount. And we bring that food into the shop. And the idea is we set it up in the church every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And the idea is that anybody can access that shop. They come, they pay £2 for a bag.
Yeah.
And they then walk around the tables we set up and choose what food they would like to fill their bag with.
Right. And that happens every Wednesday, and currently it's based at St. John's, yeah?
It is, yeah. Okay. And we decided to use the church because we felt it was better to get people to come into the church to see the church building rather than the hall.
Okay. Now, it's not like a food bank. There are some important differences between a pop-up shop and a food bank. You just want to take us through that just to help people get this clear in their heads.
Yeah. Well, the first is the customers are paying.
Right.
They're giving us money in exchange for food.
Yeah.
They're giving very little money in exchange for quite a lot of food, which makes it accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
The other difference is that anybody can turn up at the door. You don't need to be referred.
Right.
You don't need to actually prove that you have a need.
Okay. So it really is open to anyone at all. There's no kind of preconception that this is only for people who are in financial crisis or something like that. It's a genuinely open shop.
It is, yeah. I mean, there is a sense people worry that we'll get people there who don't need it. But actually, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because the food is costing us nothing, essentially, because everything we spend, we get back.
Right.
And to be fair, if you can afford to buy a decent week's shop, you will go and buy that.
Right.
We're not going to be able to you couldn't walk in and feed your family from what we have in the shop, but it would help.
It would help. So we're not means testing people at the door or anything like that, no.
No, the only thing we're getting people to sign in at the moment.
Right.
But that's only because of COVID.
Okay, fine.
So generally people will be able to walk in, we won't even know who they are or where they come from.
Sure.
They'll just be able to come in.
Brilliant. How's it been going? I mean, it sounds like a great theory, but like, is it something that people are actually taking us up on?
Well, to start off with, it started very slowly. I think it was a difficult time to start. We started beginning of December.
Yeah.
And the first week we had 2 customers, which was lovely that we had 2 customers because they weren't people. One was a lady we knew and another one wasn't.
Okay.
But since then, it's sort of potted along. We've gone up to sort of before Christmas, the week before Christmas, we had 21 people came in.
Right.
And then, of course, after Christmas, we then went back into lockdown again.
Yeah.
As at the beginning of last week, week before, and our numbers that week went right down, and we went back down to about 10, 11 people came through the doors.
Okay.
This last week, we had 47 came in.
Right.
Which shows the need is there.
So it's been running for less than 2 months. And it's gone from a couple of people the first week up to like almost 50 people just last Wednesday. I mean, how's it being advertised? I mean, I know there's a banner that's going to be going up outside the front of church over the next few days. Is there any other advertising and stuff going on apart from the flyer that's been in the church notice sheet?
Yeah, we've targeted the advertising. We first contacted all the local schools.
Right.
So we went to all the schools in the parish.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those we've got contacts at the school, so we went direct to individual people within the schools.
Right.
And those schools then shared it with
Okay.
their parents. So we sent a digital flyer. We haven't done any printed flyers, mainly because people don't want bits of paper at the moment.
Yeah, sure.
People are very scared of touching anything. So we sent out the flyers. The schools have circulated it. We've then started to do a bit of advertising on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
We set up a St John's brackets MIE pop-up shop Facebook page.
Yeah.
And we've got nearly 200 members on that, who are mostly not MIE people.
Right.
So the information all goes out onto that Facebook group, and then we're finding people on the group will share those posts,
Okay.
so they're from there. So that's proving to be really effective.
Brilliant. Now, Marilyn, tell us a bit about why we're doing this, because, you know, it'd be easy for somebody to think about Jesus turning over the tables in the temple, and surely the idea of running a shop in the church isn't necessarily a great plan. So you know, it's great that we've been able to start this ministry. It's great that we've been able to do it in the midst of lockdown when so much else is kind of being restricted, that actually we're growing in terms of opportunities here. But what's actually the rationale behind it, the thinking behind it?
I think there are two elements to it. The first is the church is there to support our community.
Right.
And our community consists of people who come to MIE,
Mm-hmm.
but it also consists of the people around the church who
Right.
don't come to MIE. And we do a lot of that anyway, with things like lunch clubs, the things that we were doing before lockdowns,
Mm-hmm.
address those sort of needs. And so there are needs in our community, that some of which were there before all this started with COVID, but many of them, I think there is a lot of new need.
Right.
There are families who had good jobs. There are families who had debts and credit that was manageable,
Mm-hmm.
but now don't have jobs.
Yeah.
And so we have a community, particularly I think thinking of areas at the edge of the parish, like Bixley Farm, up near where we live, where people are generally seen to be fairly affluent,
Uh-huh.
and suddenly aren't.
Right. Yeah.
So the church, I think the church has a really good key role in supporting people like that, and always has done.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously there's the other element, that the Bible talks lots about food and Jesus feeding the 5,000, but the goal is to feed them. The goal is to make sure they don't go hungry.
Yeah.
But we also want to share the gospel.
Right.
And so that's our aim.
So how are we doing that kind of explicitly, as it were? So we're running a shop that's actually about meeting a need that's clearly in our community, but alongside that, and sort of in a way that's integral to it, we're wanting to proclaim Christ as well. We're wanting to point people towards Jesus. So how is that being kind of integrated into this ministry?
At the moment, it's very difficult, because at the moment we can't do the things that I would want to do. I mean, some very basic stuff. I mean, like on the flyer, we put on the bottom, sharing the love of God with our community.
Right.
So that people know from the outset that this is being done by Christians.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just people in a church building, that God is in the middle of it. When we sell, people come and we have bags. They don't bring their own bags. We sell them a bag, which they fill for £2. In every bag, we put some sort of Christian literature.
Right.
So over Christmas, we were obviously putting Christmas stuff in. Everyone who came got one of the MIE Christmas cards.
Yeah.
So they saw everything that MIE was doing at Christmas,
Right.
and had the opportunity to go online and join in. Whether they did, we don't know. We're trying to talk to people.
Sure.
But at the moment, at the beginning it was easier. When we only had 2 or 3 people coming through, it was much easier to have a conversation. The first week we opened, we had one lady who came in. She spoke to, we have different stations as you go through. She spoke to virtually everybody and told them her life story.
Right. Okay.
And was only in the building 10, 15 minutes.
Sure.
So the need is clearly there. What we want to do with that long term is develop that. So things like when we can sit and have a coffee with someone,
Mm-hmm.
we'll set up tables and people will come and get their shopping and have a coffee.
Right. Yeah.
And so we can then have volunteers who sit at the tables with them, talk to them, discuss what their problems are if they want to, find out what's going on in their lives. We had one lady actually was encouraged to put a prayer request in the prayer request box and did that.
Right.
So we're very much, I mean, my heart would be very much to offer to pray for people.
Yeah.
But again, it's very difficult to do that from 2 meters away because they don't really want to share their deepest problems across a crowded room from 2 meters away from. But that would be our aim, so that we're very intentional about we're here to share the gospel.
Yeah. And some of that we can be inviting people onto Alpha and things like that as well. And I suppose the thing to be aware of is it's not just about what happens on the Wednesday afternoon while the pop-up shop is running. You know, if we're inviting people or if we're giving out the flyer or alerting someone to the fact that this is here, actually we have the opportunity as part of that to make sure that people understand that, you know, what's being done, why it's being done. And, you know, if we're inviting people to the pop-up shop, invite them to come along to Alpha as well and find out a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, I've already talked to Emma about things like invitations to Messy Church.
Yeah.
Will go in the bags because we get a lot of families through. So all those sort of things, we will be flagging it while we can. We'll be flagging up what we're doing as a church.
Yeah.
But hopefully, longer term, we'll be building some relationships with these people and starting to get into what's going on in their lives and being able to pray for that.
Sure. Fantastic. I mean, people listening to this might be sitting thinking, man, I'd love to be involved with this. You know, there's already quite a few folk involved one way or another from across MIE. I know it's based at St. John's, but it's not just people who kind of worship there on a Sunday. I mean, you were based at Bixley Farm, part of the congregation there, but you're actually heading it up at the moment. So if people want to get involved, how can they do that? What are different ways people could actually roll up their sleeves and get stuck into this?
Yeah. Well, there's several ways. I mean, the first, and what I've been saying for weeks, is that at that point we needed customers.
Yeah.
We're now at the point where we have got customers. But talk to your friends about it. Like Mark said, explain what it's about. Use it as an outreach to your friends.
Yeah.
Come down with them if you need to.
Yeah.
Volunteers. I mean, I've got an amazing team of volunteers. We had to change everything we did between last Monday evening when Boris Johnson announced the new lockdown and Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a team of about 16 volunteers,
right.
Several of whom are over 70 and felt that they couldn't really get involved with people face to face.
Yeah.
So that whole team was reorganised, stepped up. I've got people leading teams who weren't previously, who were just helping. And it's been incredible. So I've got some incredible volunteers who are doing what needs doing, but we could use more. As we get more people in, last week, because we're operating a system where people like John and I go and set up but don't run the shop, we're now short of people in the shop.
Okay.
And therefore, last week, it was all right when we were only getting 6, 10, 12 people through, but last week they desperately needed somebody else. We still didn't know it happened. Okay. But we can use more volunteers. As we go forward, we'll go back to having one team who are running the shop each week, but we can split it down more. So instead of doing alternate weeks, we have 4 teams, maybe doing 1 in 4. So I can use more volunteers.
Right.
Even if it's only temporary, if you're around sort of through lockdown because your work is different, then we can use you for a few weeks.
So if somebody wanted to do that, it's Wednesday afternoon. What sort of time commitment is that?
we have a team setting up in the morning, so that's from about 9 until 10, half 10. Then in the afternoon, it's 1:30 till we're out of the building by 3:30.
Right. Okay. So it's a couple of hours on a Wednesday.
Yeah. So yeah, volunteering. People want to donate. I've had lots of people come to me and say, "What can I give you? Can I give you food?" We really don't want food. We get food from Fair Share.
Mm-hmm.
We get a regular supply of food from Fair Share.
Right.
But what we realised was if you're struggling to buy food for your family, you're also going to be struggling to buy cleaning materials, to buy shower gel, to buy sanitary towels, all those sort of things that we take for granted. But if you've got to choose between pasta or kitchen cleaner,
yeah,
what do you buy? So we're asking people if they want to donate, can they donate those sort of things?
Yeah.
We've got boxes. There's a box on the table as you go into St John's, and there's another box as you go in to St Andrews. Right. Or if people want to contact me, we can arrange to get them picked up or dropped off at the church.
Okay.
So that's a good one. Praying is probably the key, but everybody can pray for us.
Yeah.
There is nobody in the church that can't pray. Pray. I think initially I was saying pray for people to come.
Uh-huh.
We're probably sort of beyond that because I think now we've had that number of people through the door, it'll take on a life of its own.
Right.
So pray for safety for the volunteers because we get people who come in without masks because they're exempt.
Okay, sure.
And it's very difficult. We couldn't say don't come in, but there is obviously a risk attached to that.
Right.
So pray for that. Pray that we manage it so that people are safe. All those sort of things, really, at this point. And pray that we can soon get to a point where we can do what we really want to do, which is develop it and actually reach out to the people in a way that we can't do now.
Yeah, sure. Because you got a little bit of a vision in the back of your mind about this, not being just something that's limited to what we do at St John's, but maybe other sites running other days in the parish. So you know, there's real potential for this to become a really significant thing in the life of our community, which would be amazing. And I liked what you said about you know, bringing people. One of the Wednesdays that I was there, it was really good to see someone actually did that, because we often talk about people feel quite anxious about walking into a church building sometimes, and even if it's not for, you know, a service, just physically going into the building can be quite intimidating. So meeting someone who you know would benefit from this, bringing them, and then that also then gives you the opportunity to be talking to them about what else goes on in the church and inviting them along and stuff.
That's right. I think that's probably key. And also I think the thing is, it's not just the church that's difficult. They're asking for help, and this is the sort of help that is generally seen as charity.
Yeah.
It's particularly, I think, like I say, in the more affluent parts of the parish, it's not considered to be what you do.
Right.
And so for people to come in to a church building, to people they don't know, and say, I need your help, is very difficult. And so what I've encouraged people to do is, if you bring a friend, there's no reason why you can't pay £2 to buy a bag of food.
Yeah. So
it makes it accessible, it makes it acceptable. And actually, if you really don't want the food, then please feel free to bring it back and donate it back. But it's about saying to your friend, it's okay to do this.
Yeah, this is a total, it's good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Marilyn, listen, thank you for being involved in this and for leading it up. I mean, you're on the PCC, and when we were talking about it at the PCC, it was one of those things where you offered to be involved and ended up just taking actual responsibility for it. But it sounds like you're really enjoying it as well, and it's quite an exciting thing for you to be involved in.
It's my thing. I've always done community work.
Right.
And I think my passion is to see the church doing community work as a church in their community.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll be praying for you. But before we started recording, we were talking about Stephen. And you know that bit in Act 6 where yeah, there is a bit of a problem with distribution of food, and you know the church needs to appoint spirit-filled people who are able to kind of get the church through that and make sure there's justice and fairness in what's being done. And then, of course, these people, because they're filled with the Spirit, they are relentlessly evangelistic. And you know, Acts chapter 7, one of the people appointed to deal with the food actually ends up getting martyred for preaching the gospel. So you know, we're talking about doing evangelism as a part of this, but we're hoping it doesn't come to that. But we'll be praying for you guys. And when you said earlier, pray for safety for the volunteers, I thought that's where you were going, but
I think more COVID safety. But
okay, fair enough. Brilliant. All right, Marilyn, listen, thanks so much for just giving us a bit of an insight into how this is developing in the life of MIE. It's great. And if people want to get involved, they can just get in touch with you through the church office.
Yeah. Or my phone number and my email are in the newsletter. So
brilliant.
If anything about the pop-up shops, have my email address and my phone number on it. So feel free to be in touch.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Marilyn, thank you so much. All right. Cheers then.